Okay. Spiridon, would you like to just briefly introduce our next speaker?
Yes, I think you have put the bio in the chat.
Yep.
So in order to save time, I will only say that Professor Kalevi Kull is Professor of Biosemiotics at the University of Tartu in Estonia, and that Professor Kull is a leading figure in biosemiotics. So welcome, Professor Kull. We're very excited about your presence in our conference.
Dear friends in biophilosophy, let me try to share the screen. And now it should go like this. So, is it moving?
Yes, we see.
Excellent. Now a few words from or in relation to biosemiotics and in biophilosophy. Little bit about what is biosemiotics and how we have got to that view, and then on some fundamental problems related to philosophy. So first, let's recall that semiotics is, that's definition, the science of interpretation processes, the study of meaning-making as such. And then biosemiotics is the study of meaning-making processes in the living realm. That means the study of signification, communication, and habit formation of living processes, of semiosis, which is creating and changing sign relations in living nature. And here, first, we relate it to physicalist approach. Say all science is still somehow related to this two cultures problem, can be seen as either more physicalist, in which case everything is described on the basis of unambiguous, formal way, based on universal laws, versus then sciences that can deal with equivocal polysemous, like natural language, arts, and life itself, the descriptions based on local rules which are established by someone, which are then these semiotic sciences, broadly speaking. Of course, these two, phi sciences, physical sciences, and sigma sciences, semiotic sciences, overlap somewhere, particularly dealing with then objects as products of semiotic processes, like artifacts or organisms, bodies, material bodies as such, or there are designed niches. So here, one thing at once, when trying to breach more humanitarian and physical sciences from the other side, is a conflict what is related to dealing with concepts as such, because concepts usually in more humanitarian sciences are based on their usage, and there they form a unity, conceptual unity, on the basis of family resemblance, a Wittgensteinian concept. And this is not really formal, while context dependent. In case of natural scientific approaches, concepts are strongly based on definition, formal definitions, which minimize context dependency. Now here, say one serious problem when applying semiotics in biology is related to operationalization. Here, what's also important to pay attention to, that mathematically characterizing the family resemblance is non-trivial at all, because family resemblance defies classical set theory, which relies on or clear-cut definitions via necessary and sufficient conditions, which is almost impossible to do if we did work on the categories based on family resemblance. So that's just one deep problem. Now, together with Donald Favareau, who will add some words later during our talk, we recently published this paper, Semiotics in General Biology, where several details also related to today's talk are elaborated. No. So, and we can see that here in biology, this is starting with some more semiotic approaches, we face the earlier paradigm, the paradigm what actually was formed in the mid-20th century after discovery of molecular mechanism of cell reproduction and its genetic code, which actually simplified the theory of biology to the extreme. So organism was looked as molecular machine designed on the basis of genetic program, where random mutations create new structural variants that survive if they have a higher reproductive success than their neighbors. And the theory of evolution then was based on population genetics, where the measure of adaptation was simply reproductive success. Since there are so many genetic variants, it is impossible to review them, also obvious. That is, biological systems are non-ergodic. And it follows from that optimality is usually not achievable at all, which implies that optimality models are not relevant. And from this approach, the whole explanation comes down to an evolutionary history. And that's really a very poor theory. Here it led to serious paradigm clash. And we can say that in case of Darwinist paradigm, the basis for theory, the basic process is self-reproduction, where genome determines form and behavior. We know all this is related to competitive exclusion, social biology, and so on. And the other paradigm then, you very often called epigenetic. This is, we can now say, the main process there is a dialogue, where organism or cell as organism is interpreting its genome. Genome is not determining, but organism is interpreting its genome, where the processes like symbiosis, epigenesis, and semiosis become very important, related to some ideas from neovitalism already, or certainly organicism and biosemiotics. And these two, if to exclude the word Darwinian, we could call simply a selectionist versus semiotic paradigm. In one case, organisms are copying devices. In other case, they are causal agents. Say, in one case, environment selects, other case, organisms choose. Say either this is natural selection what leads evolution, or evolution is based on semiotic fitting, search made by organisms. So, and also this makes big difference in look on inheritance. Either it's basically genetic or basically, first of all, epigenetic. Either it is innovation based on chance, or new bonds are based on learning. And that clash actually was somehow resolved, or this basic change happened, I would say, very much during this conference, New Trends in Evolutionary Biology, what took place in 2016 in London, and where the leading figure and main organizer was Denis Noble. Very good example for contemporary biological development, where a physiologist, professional physiologist, starting to move towards first systems biology ideas, but then also in his latest papers speaking about the choice made by organisms. So this epigenetic turn, also described via evolutionary extended synthesis, we think is not yet completed, because it has to turn its it has to include finally also the semiotic process itself, what's not yet really done in the theory. And this is related to independence of living, or its freedom, organism's freedom, which can be or has been described first via autonomy, like autonomous systems modeled by differential equation systems. Then the other approach pointing out mediatedness. Organisms environment relations are mediated, which means that there are relations which are in some way arbitrary. Something is connected to something else, what is not deducible to chemical affinity, but almost anything can be linked to anything else via mediatedness. And then the third step, or more radical one, goes to the description of independence of living via its capacity to make choices, which is related now, or which requires the existence of Umwelt and subjectivity. Biosemiotics has developed already for some time, since 1960s, particularly under this name, while making this, starting to institutionalize since 1990s. First, that was it was focused on animal dialogue, animal communication, and codes. Where Thomas Sebeok from Semiotics and Peter Mahler from ethology made important steps, and of course also the, so to say, semiotic or linguistic, or very much concepts were introduced when genetic code was described. Code itself is not, is rather concept, not coming from physics, of course. So, and here I put some major steps or biosemiotic trajectory from Uexküll via Thomas Sebeok and then Jesper Hofmyr, Terence Deacon, and Donald Favareau's thick anthology on essential readings in biosemiotics, which came out in 2010. So there are already monographs, journal and book series on biosemiotics existing, and important monographs. Yeah. This is very much or we can describe it via the questioning how organisms acquire the freedom in behavior, freedom in evolution. Very briefly now, what is the contribution of biosemiotics to philosophy? It attempts to offer a novel framework for understanding life, meaning, mind, and communication that bridges the natural sciences and the humanities. And here, at least 6 interrelated philosophical domains can be listed. On towards philosophy of biology, this is a redefinition of life. Life defined, emphasizing interpretation, sign use, and meaning, then introducing agency and kind of teleology. I'm also not directly using the word teleology here, but these effects described via semiotic relation, and of course critique of reductionism, explaining via semiotic causality, not just physical causality. Then on epistemology, where we can speak about situated knowing, which is grounded in Umwelt, epistemic pluralism, which supports the idea that multiple forms of knowledge exist in different organisms, not only in human minds, leading to a decentralized epistemology. And observed dependence, echoing constructivist and phenomenological insights, it argues that meaning and perceptions are always mediated by sign processes. Third, now towards phenomenology, attempting to describe minimal subjectivity by locating semiosis at all levels of life, providing a bottom-up account of how subjectivity and mind might emerge gradually, not abruptly. Then speaking about meaning before mind, meaning making, which is not exclusive to humans or animals with the nervous system, but supports a non-anthropocentric phenomenology. And living now, offering models for how organisms construct a present moment, linking semiosis to temporality and intentionality. Then on ontology and up to metaphysics, here is relatedness to process ontology, favoring relational and dynamic ontology, where entities are defined by their semiotic interactions, not their material composition alone. Semiosphere as reality, promoting the idea that the semiosphere concept described extensively by Yuri Lotman is a real and ontologically fundamental aspect of life, not merely a metaphor. And naturalizing meaning, attempting to naturalize intentionality and meaning without eliminating them, something classical analytic philosophy has struggled with. Then also implications towards environmental philosophy on biocentric ethics and ecosemiotics, aspects contributing to environmental thought by showing how ecosystems are networks of meaning, not just energy flows or food chains. And relationship also to philosophy of language via some continuity between living nature and culture. On one hand, describing here continuum from cellular signaling to human language. On the other hand, also introducing some threshold zones because it's obvious that these steps are not entirely continuous. And also we see here some revision of semiotics itself. It's a science theory extending semiotics from a human-centered discipline to a general theory of meaning in life, transforming classical semiotic approaches like Persian, Saussurean, and some others. So, biosemiotics then contributes to philosophy by reframing life as a semiotic process, providing a bridge between biology and the human sciences, revitalizing core philosophical debates about mind, meaning, subjectivity, and ethics, and supporting a post-reductionist worldview in which interpretation and relations are central to existence. So, semiotic freedom, when just now focusing more on freedom, semiotic freedom was a concept introduced by Jesper Hofmeyr, which now can be somehow at least semi-operationalized via describing levels of arbitrariness. So this code itself is or mapping is already kind of arbitrary correspondence. Genetic code is a good example here, but that is just like a simple case of where arbitrariness is still rather restricted. Here we can see binary and then also almost triadic descriptions. Say what is one approach, what is inactivist one. But then if we put together more than one code, and if these codes are incompatible, mutually incompatible, then already condition for choice appears. Further on, in a more complex case, where there is a double choice, then it's possible to use by organism a labeling, and then even a more complex level where free combination is possible, and which we see in case of imagination in organisms. So if we try to list some important steps for biology made by or proposed by biosemiotics, here is a possible list of it in some sense starts from this semi-linguistic description of genetic processes, then further animal communication, their sign use, further the step made in understanding philosophy and mechanism of species as such, biological species, one say the concept of recognition concept of species, where species is seen as a communicative phenomenon leading to self-categorization. Then study of epistemic emergence by Howard Patty, Brian Goodwin, René Thom, interpreted nature of organism. So that is, well, now classical Uxkull and Hofmeer's work. Hofmeer's and Emmeke's concept of co-duality, say that's introducing semiotic understanding of information or semantic information already, which requires more than one code. And then these major evolutionary transitions can be also described as or seen as actually having semiotic nature, well described in some works of Terence Deacon. Then evolution not based on reproductive success and fitness, but on semiotic fitting, not on the basis of co-evolution, what semiotic fitting as a search and finding process. And then everything related to now Umwelt, subjective time, and freedom and choice. Few words now about Umwelt, which emerges with semiosis and characterizes all organisms with cognitive abilities. That is semiotic window, as we have called it, namely meaning making or semiosis is an event that takes always a little time. For a meaning relation as a whole to exist, its relata should be simultaneously together for somebody. For something two different to become simultaneously together, they have to be represented as together. And that togetherness or representation, which is taking some time, means that there should be a simultaneity in representation, which in physical time has a duration, but for organism, it is simultaneous. So semiosis opens a semiotic window, which once it is temporal, is at once also spatial. So semiotic space is Umwelt. And that has described on one hand by Uxkull, Umwelt as Merkwelt plus Wirkwelt, but also in more contemporary semiotics, in Principia Semiotica, big book published by Group Mu, they call these two aspects of semiosis anasemiosis and katasemiosis. And also there is this functional circle by Uxkull and this circle of semiosis by Group Mu. They are topologically similar, but these schemes themselves are certainly too poor, because here this is not just a loop, but even two loops. This is a kind of anticipatory multiple strange loop of incompatibility, not cycle but circle, not cybernetic but semiotic. And one of its developments is has been made by Victor von Weizsäcker, who directly writes that life is not a sequence of cause and effect, but choice. So here, the process what is necessary for Umwelt or what creates it is a temporal integration, which creates the now, the simultaneity. And once it's there, it provides possibility for arbitrary choice, for also for aboutness through relation. And important to say here is that there is no meaning beyond Umwelt. Umwelt and meaning emerge together. And now there is a question of whether that temporal integration takes place also in non-animals. Here I would say that we shouldn't declare it is there, but we need to study it empirically, where it starts. It can be answered not on the basis of observation of behavior, but through identifying the necessary conditions for the emergence of temporal integration. And in case of plants, where there are leaves which have this bilateral symmetry, they on their basis have their certain organ called pulvinus, which is responsible for leaf movements, and which integrates information from both sides of leaf blade, and then makes a kind of decision which then results a movement, and it might be an example of temporal integration and a very primitive Umwelt in plants. So, and I would here also see a possibility to define subjectivity. Subjectivity is the perceived co-presence. So perceived co-presence, a co-presence in this simultaneity in the now. So here I would give now floor to Don Favareau. And before that, just showing the book we just put together for Vienna series on theoretical biology, hopefully appear in the end of this year. Don, please.
Okay.
May I say, excuse me, Don, hi. Just a remark, we have only 14 minutes left.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I will keep it short, and I'll apologize. It's almost 2 in the morning here. My wife's asleep. I got to talk quietly. I wasn't planning on being here. Kalevi just asked me last night. I hadn't seen his slide presentation, but our minds are together so long, I think I can say a few things to build on what Kalevi said. Maybe from a different, using different vocabulary, using different theorists. I'll try to keep this down to 5 minutes, just to give the people here at this conference a kind of another picture of where biosemiotics and Whitehead studies may overlap. The Australian philosopher Eran Gare is probably the person who is most successful in bringing together the thought of Whitehead, Charles Sanders Peirce, and Schelling. And I'm not going to talk about Whitehead or Schelling right now, but I wanted to see if I could draw on Paul Anton's talk, and as well as a few things Kalevi said, to make one case for why Peirce can also be thought of as a process philosopher, because Peirce's whole categorical system is based on what he calls firstness, secondness, and thirdness, and we can think of them here as possibility, actuality, and lawfulness. Now, these categories are not just ontological, they're also epistemological. They're built into a science system. And I'm not going to go talk a lot about that now, except to say this, to build on Kalevi's last point. In our understanding, we and all the other living systems are perpetually now. We're always in a now, but it's not a naive now. It is exactly not a now on a linear timeline, like Paul Antoine said. It is a now that has the past in it, in a Bergsonian sense, a real living past in it, and the future in it in a kind of Whiteheadian sense. The organism is constantly poised at this moment, informed by the contexts that have brought it to where it is at this moment, and in its decision-making, in its next action, will change that context. It's context-dependent and context-creating. For Peirce, this is the notion, the collapse into a unity of all the incoming signs that he calls the interpretant. The interpretant is the moment, you can think of it, of decision or choice. Kalevi showed very quickly a paper that we did in the very first line. I don't know if you saw it, said, or first page, choice does not require purpose. Interpretation is going to happen. It's inescapable. Every organism is situated within its brain, its shower of incoming percepts. It's located in its evolutionary and personal history, and it is demanded at all times to act, even if the act is an act of quiescence. So biosemiotics locates the organism here. And the question is, how do we understand this notion of of choice? Paul Antoine talked about the necessity of memory and anticipation. But memory and anticipation in the conventional sense is exactly what's not here right now. They refer to things that are not co-present. The understanding of biosemiotics, the understanding of semiosis, is that, again, this is not a kind of a representation that the organism reads. It's a way of being that the organism is. It is how it has become what it is at this moment, and how its choices, its decisions, which again are not psychological, not conscious, but simply collapses of this kind of wave function of possibility, bring it into the adjacent possible. I'll leave it there for right now. Again, if I wanted to make anything across in this few minutes I have, is that Peirce and Whitehead should be read together, and not those who haven't delved into Peirce yet can get a lot out of his notion, his own process ontology of firstness, secondness, and thirdness, which again is not linear. The lawfulness of thirdness informs how the possibility of firstness will collapse the reality of secondness. I'll leave it there.
So thank you very much, Don and Kalevi. So are there questions, maybe first from our speakers? Matt?
Well, I'm glad to have biosemiotics so well represented in our conference. Thank you, Kalevi and Don. I'll be touching on Peirce and the Peirce-Whitehead nexus a little bit later, so I'm glad
I'll be asleep, but I would love to watch the videos.
Will be recorded. Yeah, this question of teleology keeps coming up, and I appreciate what Paul Antoine was saying about that concept being connected to this old substance metaphysics and in process philosophy. Obviously, Whitehead has a very sophisticated way of reincorporating a form of telos that no longer presupposes a substantial subject, or conceiving of organismic aims as sort of the properties of a subject. But I wonder if either of you, Kalevi or Don, could say more about choice that does not require purpose. I mean, it seems to me that even human beings take action all the time without knowing exactly what we want to achieve. And there's a sort of improvisational element to that. And so that seems distinct from teleology, where the end is in mind in advance, and you have the whole plan thing, it's all worked out. And I think that's an anathema to a kind of process orientation where creativity is implicit in every moment. So I just wonder if it's not a specific question, but if either of you want to unpack a bit choice or decision without teleology, and how you understand that.
Only to say that it has been a recurring issue that the word choice is extremely problematic. It has far too much baggage. It's far too psychological. And yet to get a picture of what's happening is kind of hard to, we're struggling, maybe me more than Kalevi have an issue with the word choice, to find an alternative to it. This maybe a neologism, which we haven't come up with yet, I think would probably be more reflective. What the word does capture, in a certain sense, is non-determination, and not even a kind of stochastic probability. That's not it. What's happening, or Josh Bacigalupi, who's with us today, coined the phrase in a brief kind of back and forth with Kalevi and I, not free choice so much as unique choice. this particular organism has been brought to where it is at this particular moment, and its particular collapse, if you want to say, of this possibility space that for me is the equivalent of a decision, is uniquely informed and may not be reproduced even by the same organism in the next moment, because things have changed because of the process that's going on, the flux that it's in. So you can think of unique choice as a kind of, and really the key is, as Kalevi and Jean-Paul both said, to think of biological now and biological time in a very different way than we think of our conventional notion of time. And within there, the choice is not so much something that someone thinks about or has something in the future, but merely something, a way of being that's demanded by the conditions that the organism finds itself in. There is no not choosing. Kalevi, what do you think? Josh,
Yeah.
also, if you want to jump in.
If there is a situation where organism faces possibilities, say, then there is nothing else to do than to pick one of those possibilities, say, and that is what we call choice in here, say. But the existence of possibilities, and possibility cannot be a single, because then it is not a possibility, say. So the emergence of possibilities is what happens with the semiotic window. That's or Umwelt. That's yeah. Yeah, probably the word choice should be replaced by something else here, but it's actually very much what we are doing, and it's also unconscious.
Yes, so pick is also a confusing term. We need to make new terms, I think. Yeah. Josh, did you want to weigh in on that?
Actually,
maybe we caught Josh when he's
Poland.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. I'll chime in later.
Okay.
Poland one is the next.
Sorry, Spiros. Sorry, Paul Antoine.
You are unmuted.
Make sure you unmute.
You're muted.
Poland one, we can't hear you.
We can see your lips move.
Sorry. Yes, first of all, it's a pleasure to meet you. It's really a pleasure for me to meet you. Well, thank you for this. Second, I have a little problem with the concept of choice. I explain it to you. I understand what you say, and I read Kalevi's paper, very interesting, connecting choice with incompatibility and making a difference between biological choice and computing. It was very interesting, this difference. But well, my problem is that if you can define choice and say just that you have a space of possible, and that the space of possible is defined, characterized. And in this case, it's not biology for me. If you take adaptability or if you take evolution, the space of possible is not characterized, because the process of evolution, the process of adaptation, is all the time producing new possibility.
Yes, yes.
And so you will have invention, emergence of new norms, etc. How can it be compatible with the concept of choice? And of course, if you hear me, if you listen me, you listen the Bergson's critique of the concept of choice in the first book. So what is your answer? But again, it's a pleasure to meet you.
In the short answer, I can almost certainly say we are not speaking about the same thing.
Yeah,
we talk about choice.
Okay.
We need to get a new vocabulary.
Thank you.
And good night, all. Thank you for having us and for me. I guess we're done.
I think no, we have 1 minute. 1 minute left.
Okay.
Simply adding maybe that this time is a really crucial thing here. So understanding, close to Bergsonian understanding of time, that should be fundamentally introduced into biology.
I saw, Catherine, did you have a quick question? I saw you waving your hand.
Hi, I just want to say hi, Kalevi. Maybe I've been
Hi.
pronouncing your name wrong. I just want to say everything I've heard this morning has been music to my ears, and I'm going to be really busy tonight, carving and reshaping my talk accordingly. I feel like I found my people. I just want to say, Kalevi, you did not mention the enome, but you set me up for it. So if you have a second to say something about the enome as a place between index and, you can say it better than I can.
Yeah, this is related to the types of science, which is icon, index, and symbol according to Peirce. But usually, when you understand what icon is something we think as a picture already, and that requires already some indexical aspects. So therefore, in that sense, icon is more complex than index, and therefore another term for this was introduced, enome, which is between symbol and index, and in case of organisms, so this is related to their process of imitation. So when imitation is there, then that is already enome, not as simple as a primary icon.
I love it. And I don't know if you remember, but I gave a little talk about the role of emotion at your, I think it was 2016 Biosemiotics meeting. Stu and I were there, and I gave a little talk about emotion. Tomorrow, I'm going to give a much more updated talk about it. And thank you so much for bringing that to the table.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much. We don't have any more time. So I think we have to move to the next speaker, to Jana Svorkova.
Yes. Thank you, Spirit On. So yeah, next is Jana Schwartzova from Charles University in Prague, Czech Republic. Jana is assistant professor at the Department of Philosophy and History of Science, the Faculty of Science at Charles University. Jana, please, the floor is yours. Let me just